Wasabi guys, welcome back to another Magic Market Watch video. Heading towards the end of October, I wish I could tell you things are changing, they're really not. It seems to be more of the same of what happened over the summer. A lot of the top sellers manipulating the market. I know that's not what a lot of people want to hear anymore, but it's still happening, so as long as it's happening, I'm going to continue talking about it, and I would only really stop doing it if I stopped caring about it, which at that point I would just not play Magic anymore. I would walk away from the game entirely. This first card here is Exalted Flamer of Tzeentch from the Universes Beyond Warhammer 40k. At least I think that's how it's pronounced. It might be Tzeentch or Tzeentch. And I talked about this a bit in a community post about the impact of some of these crossovers. It might actually be the opposite of what Wizards of the Coast is hoping for. They're hoping that it's a lateral move for players of that game, which it really isn't. If you know anything about Warhammer, it's a totally different game. In fact, a lot of the appeal for that isn't even so much the game, it's the miniatures. You can make the entire hobby just about painting the miniatures, and there are people who do that. We don't really have anything like that in Magic the Gathering. This is a card game, which is also pretty pricey. And from what I hear, Warhammer is pretty pricey as a hobby. So this crossover is more in the face of Magic the Gathering players. My point was that they're learning about all these different characters that they've maybe never seen before. They don't know what a Tyrannid is, they don't know what a Necron is, an Astartes warrior, whatever they are. So the likeliness of them coming over to play our game, let's say they made a Monopoly 40k, would that make 40k players suddenly want to play Monopoly if they had no interest before? Or if they made a Magic the Gathering Monopoly game, would that make you want to play Monopoly anymore? So that's my point. Now on to this card specifically. It's basically a better version of Charmbreaker Devils, and since this card came out, I've hated it. I do not like Charmbreaker Devils. It's been reprinted in several products, and you're spending 6 mana on a 4/4 that might get you something good at the beginning of your upkeep. You have to wait, which if you do have to wait, it should be considerably cheaper than 6 mana, and it should do something more than just give itself +4 power whenever you cast an instant or sorcery. This not only is cheaper, you do have to play 2 different colors, but it has a great trigger that whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, it's going to deal 1 damage to each opponent. So if you're playing Spellslinger and you remember the days where you would try to make it work with Charmbreaker Devils, here you basically have a Charmbreaker Devils, but it's better. Is it worth the $12 to $20 that you're going to be seeing it listed for on TCGPlayer? Maybe not, but it's definitely more playable. Our next big gainer of the week is Burglar Rat from Jumpstart. I shouldn't have to really tell you what's going on here. It's a little bit different because this time we're looking at a pretty good common. It's definitely playable, not just in discard-focused strategies, but we have Charade, Shizo's Caretaker. Is it the kind of common that is going to overnight jump up to $4? Hell no. And noticing that the other Burglar Rat isn't going up should be a massive red flag. So again, this is a big reason why I hate the card optimizer, why I've been talking about it, because it's actually working. It's actually tricking people into buying something at a ridiculous premium. And these are just some of the listings for this Burglar Rat. You can see that a lot of sellers are, monkey see, monkey do here. They're listing it right at that market value of 3 to 4. But then you see at the very bottom, you have the ones who are actually influencing the trend. This doesn't tell you the whole story though, because let's look at what happened earlier in October. You could see the 25th, which is the day that I'm recording this video. Someone purchased 87 of these for only 36 cents. Well, why does that matter? Because people make their financial decisions based off of what they see in market trends. What happened earlier in October was really concerning. We see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 separate sales of an otherwise sub 50 cent card for over $10. I cannot guarantee that it is the card optimizer that is tricking folks into buying this at that ridiculous price, but that is my best guess. It's the only reason why these purchases would take place is if someone didn't know any better or they were distracted using the optimizer to simplify a pretty large order. Who's going to pay attention to the overpriced Burglar Rat when you've likely got other cards that are even more expensive? It's a little thing, but it does add up. And because it's actually working, like I could see if someone lists a Burglar Rat for $999 and it doesn't sell, that's just stupid. But this is still at a premium that's ridiculously high, but it's not high to the point where if someone's already spending hundreds of dollars on a new deck, they're gonna notice and they're gonna go, wait a minute, that Burglar Rat's way too expensive. So this is my biggest issue with TCGPlayer. They don't seem to care anymore. We've been talking about this for 2 months. I guess it's gonna take a bigger channel, maybe with some affiliation with TCGPlayer to speak out on this. It's the only thing I can think of. They know that they have customers who've complained about this happening. They just don't care. Next, we have a card. I think this is pretty genuine interest. We're seeing a lot of cards from Warhammer 40k crossover that are doing pretty well. Like you have the search foil, you have the normal version of the card that seem to be consistent. Looking at this card though, it's not anything radically different from what Gruul tends to do. You have a lot of non-creature hate cards. This does hurt your opponents the first time they cast a non-creature spell each turn. Very much like a Rurik Thar, but not as aggressive. Does make your first creature spell you cast each turn 2 less, so those are pretty good conditions. I think this is a solid enchantment. Not something I would say is worth 20 and above, so I would be careful with a lot of these. I don't know the inventory situation. It might be a lot of inventory, so it makes it easier to manipulate cards like that. When you have a lot of cards, you could have separate listings, and that seems to be how the larger sellers influence the market. We get Hollowhenge Overlord, seeing a market value of above $5 now. Again, this is one of those cards where I shouldn't have to tell you, you know the trend. If it's a bulk rare from a Commander product precon, and it's only from that one precon, you know there's a good chance it's not going up because of genuine interest. We get Bloodthirster, it's another Warhammer 40k card. This one's pretty easy to understand. You get additional combats, good stats for the creature that you're getting it off of too. So even if you're not getting additional combats aggressively, you still get a 6/6 flying trample creature for only 6 mana. There's always a way that you can combo with cards like these, which is why they tend to be sought after, because it's not enough to get just one additional combat, you gotta be able to get multiple. Again, looking at the prices, they seem pretty realistic. This is what I like to see. You see the foil is considerably higher than the non-foil, but they're both above $20, which means that this is genuine interest. Now we get to talk about some losers for the week, which is kind of refreshing because usually when a card is losing, sellers don't want cards to go down, so you know it's probably legit. And Privileged Position got a reprint in Double Masters 2022, which is really weird because for the longest time this has been at least a $10 card. But getting a reprint alongside things like Teferi's Protection, Dockside Extortionist, Imperial Seal, it's gonna be a pretty bad rare by comparison. So if you want the printing from Double Masters 2022, that's probably the way to go. You can get it for under $2. Then we have a correction from last week. We have Smothering Tithe going right back down to reality, around $25 for the market value. Why did it spike last week? Well, I couldn't tell you. TCGPlayer has a lot of problems with their website. Then we have Kazul, Tyrant of the Cliffs. Got a reprint a couple times this year. As you can see, it was getting above 5 there, but getting a couple reprints in back-to-back Commander products, New Capenna, Baldur's Gate, didn't do it any favors, so yeah, it's getting around the $2 area. Great red card for Commander, I like it, but again, it's not going to be a valuable card, more of a bulk rare than anything else. And the last card for the day, the last loser, is Wilhelt the Rockcleaver from the Commander Innistrad Midnight Hunt set. Pretty decent Commander, all things considered, for zombie decks. The Decayed keyword is a bit of a downside. 2/2 zombies are pretty strong in Commander, so I guess giving them some downside was necessary, but if there's anything holding it back, that's really all there is, because you do have a pretty solid end-step trigger where you can sack a zombie to draw a card. Maybe not the most played Commander out of last year, but it does check a lot of boxes. It's in that reasonable mana cost range. Anything that's above 4 mana, you begin to ask a lot more out of your Commander. So reasonable stats, reasonable mana cost. This was a pretty solid zombie Commander. So that's going to do it for the Market Watch, October 27th, 2022. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Commander Void here signing off. I will see you all next time.